Area of interest heading for Madagascar on today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for March the 1st. Well, we know that February was definitely a drab month, with me being out of action for 3 weeks as well. Well, we're finally back with the Tropical Weather Bulletin, and we are presented with a very quiet tropics today, unclassified on Ticos, and so far we've had 9 storms to this year's name. Well, it's 91 days until hurricane season in the Atlantic, would you believe? And obviously there's nothing active right now, which is very good news. A significant frontal system moving through the southern United States today, and across the Atlantic quite a bit of cloud cover over the central part. In the eastern Pacific, it's only 74 days until the start of hurricane season there, and it's very quiet right now with just a weak front moving through east of Hawaii. Very quiet out there. Well, in the western Pacific, things look fairly quiet here as well, with only a little disturbance down there in the tropical zone, the ITCZ. Extremely quiet though across most of the western Pacific, with very large areas of clear skies, as you can see. North Indian Ocean also quite quiet. The Australian region then, you can see that 10% just off to the left hand side. That's for later on in the coming week, and that is still in the I think that's in the southwest Indian Ocean. It's near the border with the Australian region. That's at 90 degrees east. And looking towards the southwest Indian Ocean, we've got that main one that we're watching right now. We're giving a 30% chance. Looking quite decent. It's certainly actually a formed system. Whether it becomes a tropical storm or not is another question entirely, but 30% we're giving that. And the South Pacific empty right now, as you can see here. Extremely quiet with barely any cloud cover across the South Pac. So really not very much to track right now, but let's take a look at this area of interest in more detail. It's currently 481 kilometers east-southeast of Agaléga, 859 from Tromelin, 971 from Rodrigues, 1033 from Mauritius, and 1210 from Réunion. It's around 1220 kilometers from the coast of Madagascar, which is where we're expecting this eventual system to track. Probably as a close borderline tropical storm. I think the main question will be whether it gets a circulation going, but I think it will present itself with fairly strong winds and heavy rain. Well, here's the satellite imagery of the system right now, and it doesn't look very prepared yet for becoming a tropical cyclone, does it? Just a few little areas of high convection, no real signs of a center of circulation, but certainly producing thunderstorms, which could be affecting some of those islands of the Seychelles right now, actually, and could be producing locally heavy rainfall. Well, let's take a look at some of the sector imagery across some other parts of the world. They're a little bit out of date in some areas. This is the Western Pacific. And these are all, and this is Southwest Indian Ocean now, all available on the Force 13 website. New to the website, along with the actual floaters of all the storms that form. So we're building our library on there. And this is the Southwest Indian Ocean. There's the Australian region, a very wide shot. A little bit out of date, this one, because the imagery isn't. I think there's some kind of lag on the Himawari 9 satellite imagery, but you can see there's been a little bit of a cyclonic rotation over Western Australia. It never knows when to give up over there. And in the South Pacific, this is all very much up to date. Not much going on here, as you can see, but some cloud cover much further north, around about the equator towards the west, not far from Papua New Guinea. A little bit of thunderstorm activity in the equatorial regions, but in the tropics and out to sea, very little going on whatsoever. Which, you know, it is supposedly peak season in the southern hemisphere right now. Well, the current visuals belie that fact. Sea surface temperatures then in the eastern Pacific look like this, starting to warm up again, and you'll notice that in all the northern hemisphere basins they've probably just reached their minimums now and they're starting to come back again. The Atlantic already, the Caribbean still already warm enough, and in the western Pacific a large area there warm enough as well into the Philippine Sea and over all of the Mariana Islands and a good chunk of the South China Sea as well. North Indian Ocean looking decent with maximums of 29 degrees over large parts of the eastern Arabian Sea, around India actually, and in the Andaman Sea, which is where we often see early developments. Southwest Indian Ocean still looking pretty loaded, especially in the Mozambique Channel, over 30 degrees Celsius over large parts there, and ahead of this potential cyclone it's around 29 to 30 as well. The Australian region still looking very good apart from a cold blemish off the coast of Western Australia, but elsewhere it's looking very good. Coral Sea very warm, over 30 degrees Celsius. South Pacific also looking good around Fiji, 30 degrees plus, and near Vanuatu also getting close to 32 actually in one or two spots. Certainly March can bring out some extremely powerful storms, so let's not nap on this just yet. Compared to normal, it looks like this. All of the oranges are above normal temperatures. You see a few blues there around the Australian immediate coastline, slightly below average. But overall, most of the tropical zones that matter are above average by 1, 2, maybe 3 degrees in some spots, particularly the Coral Sea. The Atlantic, as you can see there, is well above average across the whole ocean. Oceanic heat content in the South Pacific, a measure of the amount of energy in all of that water and how far down it goes, a big metric in tropical cyclone development, looking really good in the tropical zone of the South Pacific. And in the Western Pacific there as well, it hasn't really completely died off as well. And even in the Eastern Pacific, there's one or two little spots there that are primed already. So let's check the GFS computer model, and this is supported by some of the other models that will get certainly a tropical disturbance. We've already got one making landfall in northern Madagascar in around 48 to 72 hours, 2 to 3 days. There it is again on the GFS. Look closely here, it gets quite close and makes landfall in northern Madagascar around the 3rd, maybe early hours of the 4th of March, and then moving inland reaches tropical storm strength. Whether it gets circulation going or not is another question. Now this is the other area of interest that we've marked, 10%, not far from the coast of Indonesia, getting down towards the Cocos Keeling Islands. Now there it is, trying to develop and get a circulation going. Does it do it in 5 days? Probably not. That's the main reason why the percentages are low at the minute, but beyond the 5-day period, chances could be starting to rise, and the models are certainly excited about it. We'll show you that in a moment. Looking at the precipitation charts then for the Southwest Indian Ocean and for Madagascar, it looks like this, and we could be expecting significant amounts of rainfall for large parts, maybe the whole northern half of Madagascar actually could be in on quite a bit of heavy rainfall, but it's mainly the coastal areas that we're looking at there for the highest amounts, up to and above 5 inches, which is over 125 millimeters, getting towards and maybe above 200 millimeters further south in a few spots there, and offshore near the landfall point it will be around 12 inches, 300 millimeters. In the next 7 days, La Reunion could also get 1 to 2 inches of rain, 50 millimeters, and Mauritius and Rodrigues could get up to 25 millimeters of rain as well. And that is likely not going to be associated with a cyclone. So let's take a look at the moderate range, day 5 through 10. And this is what it looks like right now in the South Indian Ocean further east. That system that we were talking about, that 10%, clearly becomes a tropical cyclone, a fairly large one as well. And look further east, another one sprouts out south of Java, Indonesia, and slowly makes course towards Western Australia. It actually becomes the strongest storm out of the two by the end of the 10-day period, becoming a hurricane equivalent storm, which would be category 2 or 3 on the Australian scale. There they are, both coexisting in that imagery. A borderline cyclone in the South Pacific, way out towards the east there, and further west another one looks like it forms there. Trying to figure out where that is. That's way to the southwest of Samoa. It's way out over the open waters, I think. I don't think there's any other land masses in the way, but that's something that we might want to be watching out for next week for a potential new tropical cyclone. It doesn't look like a very long-lived one, quite similar to the two that we had in February. Scan the barcode and that will take you to the Force 13 merch store, where you can take a look at all of our items as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request. Guess what? The Still Waiting for Hone t-shirt is still in well abundance of stock, because we've certainly not had a Hone in that month that I've not done a bulletin. Well, in the silly range, this continuation of this powerful storm actually in the end looks like it gets to category 4 again. Djoungou vibes perhaps, but gets much closer to Rodrigues. It is in the long range, that one though. Certainly would be giving Rodrigues a run for its money with some powerful storm force winds and maybe even hurricane force winds. Mauritius and Réunion look like they get away without tropical storm force winds there, but once again it is extremely long range. We're talking mid-March, we've only just entered the month, so keep a lookout on that one. The other one near the coast of Australia gets to category 1 peak by the looks of things, and then continues southwards, doesn't quite make it to the west coast of Australia. There's a little bit of a shield there this year, and colder sea surface temperatures as well. You just saw at the very end there another storm forming almost out of thin air off the coast of Western Australia, quickly becoming a hurricane equivalent storm as well right at the end of that run. There it is, forming first of all near the Kimberley and then moving westwards and strengthening. Well, on this day, we really had a giant back in 2005. Yes, it wasn't just a big season in the Atlantic, it was big in the southern hemisphere as well. We had Cyclone Percy reaching a 165 mile per hour category 5 peak on this day in 2005, late on March the 1st, pictured on that image as well, to the southeast of Samoa, way out over the eastern part of the usual area that we expect to see these storms, and with a minimum pressure estimate of 900 millibars. Well, back to today, we are unclassified, no real threat active right now, notwithstanding that Madagascar system. In the Atlantic, the first system this year will be Alberto. In the Eastern Pacific, Aletta, and in the Central Pacific, our next name is still Hone. In the West Pac, the next name is Iwinyar. In the North Indian Ocean, it will still be Remal. So 9 storms so far this year. It does feel like it's been a slow start, it has to be said. In the Australian region, the next name now is Megan. In the Southwest Indian Ocean, it's Filippo. And in the South Pacific, it's Peter. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. Wherever we are around the world, we'll see you again tomorrow.